So welcome everyone to the CalPADS Regional Updates. I just heard from Martha that it's been a while, so we're really excited that you guys are here to find out more about what's going on with CalPADS this year. This is where you can access the PowerPoint and resources. For those of you that are not familiar, that's the CDE box site. Today, for our presenter information, we have Brandy and myself, as well as Sean and Angela. Brandy's going to be covering the special education redesign and the information there. When it comes to just the general CalPADS information, that's going to be covered by myself and Sean. And then, of course, Angela from Census is going to have lots of great information for you too. And as far as Census is concerned, we have a bunch of people from there as well as from our office that will be helping answer questions. And here is the current agenda. We have new legislative requirements impacting deadlines. I'm sure most of you have heard about those already. And again, we'll talk about the special education redesign. Brandy has been all over the state, but we're making sure that she is here to help all of you with any questions that you have regarding the redesign. We're going to talk a little bit about the 23-24 changes and Fall 1, and of course, looking ahead to Fall 2, and also the rest of 2024. And Angela's going to be talking about CalPADS support update. Okay, here we go, the deadlines. And I know this is not everybody's favorite topic, and I'm excited to be able to share this with you. So just to let you know, CalPADS didn't create this, CDE didn't create this, the legislature created this. And this is basically trying to get data to the legislatures and to superintendents earlier and earlier. So what it did was it caused the dashboard deadlines to be moved up. So because the dashboard deadlines were having to be moved up, then of course CalPADS data deadlines had to be moved up. It also includes data management practices where we're trying to make sure that everybody who needs that support will be able to get that support. So that is why we had to change the deadlines. So it wasn't that we were trying to make everybody's life harder, and we definitely aren't. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can support you more and more. So we also did hear from quite a few of you regarding the deadlines. The deadlines that we currently have, I believe, are on the next slide, which are for the following years. Now when it comes, these are for end of year. The deadlines for this year for Fall 1 and for Fall 2 are pretty much the same. I mean, there's really no real difference there. It's the end of year that we've been looking at with a hard lens. So if you'll notice, we tried to make it palatable as much as possible so that we're kind of easing into it over the next few years. We did hear, like I said, from a lot of you, and I personally have read every email from the CalPADS inbox, and many others have been reading those emails to try to figure out the best way to go about this. This is something that we have the ability to change. However, we have to balance out everybody's needs. So it has been a real struggle, and we do appreciate those that spent the time to write and tell us of some specific needs, because that's very, very helpful. We know that many of you are sharing some of these needs, and so it does help us to address concerns. In addition to the deadlines, we also have changed the graduate cutoff date. Now, understand this had to happen for the change in the deadlines. It just had to happen. So the decision was made that we were going to move it to June 30th, beginning the 23-24 fiscal year, or school year, sorry. So it is important to note that this 1 year is going to be the hard one, but then it's going to be June 30th, ongoing. So students who graduated between July 1st and August 15th will not be included as graduates in the 4-year cohort for 23-24, but will be counted as 5th-year graduates in the 24-25 school year.
So,
And
Marianne,
yes.
We do have a comment from Anita. I don't know if CDE would like to speak to us. The change in the EOI deadlines are going to completely devastate our 4-year cohort grad rates. We have so many summer grads.
I could take a crack at that. So, Anita, I will have our accountability folks reach out to you specifically, and they can talk more specifically to your situation and that. They are definitely aware of this and will be adjusting the, they're making adjustments so that it's not going to impact your graduation rate indicator. But I will have them reach out to you specifically so they can kind of go over that data with you. When you look statewide, there's not actually a whole lot of districts that are impacted by the summer grad situation. So anyway, we'll have them talk to you directly because that's pretty much their area and they've been looking at that data very closely.
I think there's another slide on this too that just kind of wraps it up, that that just says the CDE will account for this change in the 2024 dashboard and the calculation of the graduation rate indicator so that LEAs are not adversely impacted for accountability purposes by the shift with the graduate cutoff date, which is exactly what Paulo was saying. So that is what our accountability folks have let us know. So we do understand. I mean, we do understand. It's just we have to follow the law now, and it's a painful law currently. Okay. Do you have some additional questions or concerns? We have received comments, like I said. We have been reading all of the information. We did find that it is difficult for schools that have the end this school year later, and we're trying to give as much information as possible for the next few years, because normally you don't see the CalPADS deadlines 3 years out, but that way maybe you guys can plan and maybe change some things to make it a little bit easier for your LEA. We understand about the small schools. We heard from a lot of small schools where the staff are wearing multiple hats. And so we want to reach out to you guys and see if there's some ways that we can support you in that. We have lots of staff at Census that can talk you through some of the things that may be helpful. And then we understand that we need to keep the data quality high. So it's really important that even though it's a shorter period, we definitely need to put in place at each one of your LEAs some kind of way to still allow you to review the data quality, even though we heard you that it could impact data quality. Okay, so now I have all questions related to deadline and grad cutoff, and I'm ready to listen. We can let this go for a little bit, and of course, if you guys still have additional comments or things that you want to say in the Q&A, even if they're not questions, just go ahead and put that in, and we will be going over all of that information.
So Marianne, I just want to note one of the questions in the Q&A asked, does this information go to superintendents? Yes, the information has gone out to superintendents. It's gone out through that yearly letter. You can find the copy of that letter on the CalPADS communications page there if you need to provide it again to your superintendent. Also, if you're part of the CalPADS listserv, you got a copy of that letter as well.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I just wanted to respond to we haven't at all addressed any fall 1 or fall 2 deadlines. So there was a comment about also moving fall 2 is huge. So don't worry about that yet. We are definitely understand the issues relating to that, but it's really the focus has been on the end of year deadlines because of the dashboard. So just wanted to make that comment.
Good morning, everybody. All right, so we are now in the transition year. So our new file types for students with disabilities were enabled on September 19th. That's the SWDS, the Students with Disability Status file, the Special Education Meetings file, which is the MEET file, plan, special education plans, and services are in the SERV or SERV file. So our new snapshot reports for special education are going to start running tomorrow, Census Day. So October 4th is the Census Day. And what that means is that's the point in time that CalPADS will be looking at. So we're looking at students with disabilities that were enrolled in your LEAs on October 4th. And we're looking at students who were on active plans for Census Day. Next slide. So here are, just as a reminder, the new snapshot reports that you're going to be looking at. Please do not go back to 16.1, 16.2. If you try to render those reports, you're going to see that it's not showing current data, and that's because 16.1 and 16.2 are using the old files, the SPED and SSRV files. So report 16.12 is replacing report 16.1. It's now only going to display students on active ISPs, IEPs, or IFSPs. So what that means, folks, is last year in 16.1, you were able to use filters to select kids who were determined not to be eligible or whose parents declined or kids with pending meetings. Now those reports are only going to show students on active plans. That's an IEP, ISP, or IFSP. So 16.12 is the same report, just a new number with the limitation of only active plans. Next slide. So report 16.2, which is your federal settings report, that report has been replaced with 16.13. So again, you can go on tomorrow and these snapshots should start running based on data that you have using the new file types that we just discussed. And as long as they have an enrollment that is active on Census Day, the student should be showing up here in these reports. So what's the official definition for special education status effective start date? Oh, that's a great question that I'm going to answer in just a minute. So hold tight. Is all that information pulled from SACE, not our SIS programs? And the answer is yes, right? So the information for these new file types is pulled from the special education data system. So if you're SACE or CYRUS, Welligent, Web IEP, Synergy, PowerSchool, SPEDX, all of those systems should be sending these new file types. When will the new accountability and monitoring reports be available? I'm going to answer that question too. So can you label report 16.1 so it's obvious that it's so can we make it obvious not to use that report? Yeah, we can certainly take that into consideration, Kim. Okay, I've had many CalPADS transactions in SACE that have been reported and show posted, though the transactions are not clearing, showing as accepted in SACE. Is there a fix for this? I believe this is a SACE issue that they were going to address. Would that be correct, Martha? Yeah, I think SACE was made aware of that. Yeah. And I'm seeing some SACE folks saying, yes, SACE is aware of the issue. So that is a SACE issue. Will we be able to pull historical Fall 1 data for the SELPA? It's not currently available. And the answer is yes. Sean, do you want me to share?
I am bringing up right.
Okay, perfect.
Hold 1 second.
So it is not currently available. So if you're not seeing the historical reports for SELPA, Martha, are you guys aware of anything with those historical reports for SELPA?
I know that we had the containers weren't available, and I believe they were going to be reactivated this morning. I was unaware about the report, so.
Okay, so we will look into that, but send in a ticket, please, so we can do that. Report 16.14 now replaces report 16.3. So Again, the only difference in this fall report, new 1614, it's your student list. It's only going to show students on active IEPs, IFSPs, and ISPs. We did add some new columns to this because we do have some new columns in our new file types. So just know that this report has been adjusted to add those new columns. Next slide. Okay, 16.15 is your service report. This is the same report, it's just a different number. Next slide. Okay, and then Students with Disabilities Service, Student Services list. This is a list of all the students and each service that they receive. The only change on this report was the plan effective start date and the number, right? So 16.16 replaces report 16.6. And those are all of the reports that you're going to be required to certify for purposes of Fall 1. Next slide. Okay, we did have some initial implementation issues that you may have been aware of, and some of you might be hearing this for the first time. So if you attended my roadshow, you knew that we were actually going to take your existing SPED and SSRV records, and we were going to use information in those records to create these new file types, the SWDS, the MEET, the plan, and the SERV. And so we did run that logic the day before we actually went into production, which was September 19th. And what we figured out very shortly afterwards was that there were at that time, it was about 340,000 kids that were missing their most recent meeting record. And so we identified the issue. We went ahead and added those records. So it was resolved for all but about 140 students. So we did reach out to each of the SELPAs. We gave them a distinct list of the SSIDs that were affected and where those MEET records need to be manually added. So your SELPA should have reached out to you if you were one of those affected districts with one of these SSIDs. Also, the legacy SPED and SSRV containers, you may notice that they're not there anymore, or they haven't been there. And that was because there was a defect associated with those SPED and SSRV containers. And I believe that it was supposed to be fixed as of today, as of this morning's release. So Martha or Angela, do you have any other, do we know whether or not that happened?
The SPED and SSRV containers are now available, as well as the SPED and SSRV ODS extracts.
All right, happy dance. Okay, so the reason that's important, folks, is because if you're trying to look at a student's history and you're trying to see whether or not the data that were created in these new record types is accurate, you can actually do that comparison looking at your SPED records. So those have been restored, so you can go ahead and do that comparison if you've got kids where you're not sure their entire history is there. But just remember, we did not convert everything. That's one of the things that I want you guys to be really aware of. We didn't take a student's entire history and convert it. What we did was we converted their most recent information, their most recent initial, annual, and reevaluation, as well as any most recent amendments, and we converted those records, but we did not convert their entire history. Okay, so a lot of you were very happy to hear that we've now provided you the ability to add records, to delete records, and in some cases update records through the CalPADS online maintenance tool. And essentially what that is being able to log into CalPADS with your user ID, and if you need to manually add a MEET record or manually add a plan or service record, you can go ahead and do that directly into CalPADS. However, and I just want to reiterate this, only users that are authorized by the LEA to actively work in the IEP systems, and they're authorized by their LEA to submit special education data to CalPADS, should have the role SPED Edit. Okay, the SPED Edit role allows you to do this record submission through online maintenance. And the reason it's really important that only authorized users have that capability is because the data in the IEP system is a legal document, okay? That means there are implications if the state level data does not reflect what's in the IEP system. Okay, so anything that you are putting into CalPADS directly should be a reflection of what's already in your IEP system, or that update will be made. Okay, so we should not have users that don't work in SACE or CIRUS or Welligent or Web IEP manually making those updates. We should not have that. So if a CalPADS administrator does not work in the special education data system, they should not have the SPED edit rule attached to their account. So we, at CDE are not going to be policing that, but it's important, SPED folks, that you make sure that only authorized users have the capability to manually add those records. Okay, monitoring reports 16.7 and 16.8. So as of today, the monitoring reports that you previously used, 16.7 and 16.8, are being retired. Okay, so those use the old file types, and that's the reason if some of you were actually using those reports, you were seeing these really wonky numbers. And that's because they use the old file types, so they're being retired. They are going to be replaced with some new reports, so I do not have an exact date. I can tell you that the late plan reviews and eligibility reevaluations, that report it has been given top priority. And so we expect that it's going to be in a release very soon. So I will let you know as soon as those reports are available. But the other really exciting news is that we're going to have 2 additional reports. So your monitoring reports are going to be threefold this time. So we've got the late plan reviews and eligibility reevaluations. Okay, we'll have a separate report that is specifically for initial evaluations. And that report is going to give you information on whether or not a district has met the 60-day timeline for initial evaluation, or for the Part C to B transitions if they've been initially evaluated by their 3rd birthday. And then finally, we're still working the kinks out on another report that's going to show you information about your transition goals and parental involvement indicators. So we're still working on that one, but you will have a total of 3 monitoring reports at the aggregate, and also a student list associated with those. So we will keep you updated on those. Okay, student degree of support, just know this is another thing I talked about in my road shows. SELPA CDE work group is meeting regularly to develop guidance on how you are going to be expected to make the determination of the student degree of support. Okay, so that's the degree of support, either extensive support needs or mild moderate support needs that the student needs for their particular primary and secondary disabilities. So we expect to release that guidance in around the January timeframe, and that's because those data are not currently required for this year. They will be required in the 24-25 academic year. Okay, I also wanted to give you some information about those of you that may have been looking for the SPED Discrepancy extract. Some of you may not have even known that it existed, but those of you that used it know that that particular extract was used when we first started the collection of data for students with disabilities in CalPADS. And what it did was it took demographic information from your special education data system and then compared it to the demographic information in CalPADS that was being submitted by your student information system. And it spit out this list of discrepancies between the demographic data between your special ed system and your SIS. Because that particular extract, number one, used the old file types, but also if you'll notice in the new file types for students with disabilities, we don't actually collect any demographic information. So because we don't collect demographic information from the SED system anymore, we can't give you that SPED discrepancy extract. So it is not there. There are no plans to replace it. But what is really important now, the responsibility falls on you to make sure that those two systems, your SIS and your SPED system, have some sort of integration where you're making comparisons to make sure that the demographic information in both of those systems is consistent. And that's important for staff that deal with students with disabilities for disproportionality, right? So is your race ethnicity correct in your SPED system. Because when you get your findings for monitoring and you're seeing disproportionality in a specific race ethnicity group, it's coming from your student information system. It's not coming from your SPED system. Just know that. Okay, so you will notice that there is a new school completion status. It's school completion status code 102. That's the pathway diploma for students with disabilities. This code was made effective July 1st, 2023. But it can only be used for students meeting the following criteria. And this is really important, folks. So if you're going to listen to anything I'm saying, please listen to this right now. Number one, the student had to have entered the 9th grade in the 2022-23 academic year or later. That's really important because I've heard that some districts are actually trying to exit their students with this diploma this year as 12th graders, and you cannot do that. They had to have entered the 9th grade in the 2022-23 academic year or later. They have to be eligible to take the California alternate assessments, and they have to complete state standards aligned coursework needed to meet the state minimum graduation requirements. Okay, these particular students are exempted from having to meet all local graduation requirements and need only meet the state minimum graduation requirements. Now, the other things that I wanted to talk about, because I've been getting a lot of questions, are these students eligible to re-enroll for services after they graduate with this diploma? Because number one, this particular diploma for the adjusted cohort graduation rate, if they receive this diploma within 4 years of their initial 9th grade entry, these kids are actually counted as high school graduates. However, they can actually re-enroll for special education services prescribed in their IEPs until they age out at 22. Okay. Now, students with disabilities that exited with a standard high school diploma last year, because we've been getting a lot of questions about this too. We've got districts that exited those kids as standard high school graduates with school completion status code 100, and they're trying to re-enroll them this year. Students that graduate with a standard high school diploma that are students with disabilities are not eligible to re-enroll. Okay, so really important that you understand that. Also wanted to give you a link to the correspondence that went out from our special education division on August 25th. The link is provided in the PowerPoint, so please make sure that you download the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to go over these resources and support, and then I will go ahead and take a look at the questions. So first of all, today sometime you will see that our special education Fall 1 FAQs have been revised, right? So we revised all of the existing FAQs. We added lots of new FAQs that we were getting during the road shows. So sometime today, this page will be updated. So if you go there right now, I don't believe that the updates have been made, but later today, you should see in these FAQs a whole new set of frequently asked questions. The other things that we are making available to you are special education file submission data scenarios. So in those of you that attended the road shows know that we went through this whole series of scenarios and tried to get you to understand when CalPADS would expect in a particular scenario an SWDS file, a MEET file, a plan file, a SERV file. Well, we actually put all of those scenarios as well as many more. There's over 20 different scenarios that have been grouped by category into an Excel spreadsheet for you. And you can download that particular file. And if you're questioning whether or not your vendor is appropriately sending up a particular file for a student when an event happens in your IEP system, you can actually look at it in this data scenarios document. And the other really cool thing about that particular document is it tells you the expected data in each of those. So I had a question earlier about what does the plan effective start date mean in a specific scenario. You can actually look at these specific scenarios and it will tell you what the plan effective start date, what the special education status start date typically means. And then additionally, if you, in this link, there is a link to another document that we did that specifically defines special education status in conjunction with one of the non-participation reason codes. Okay, so we've got two documents there that tell you exactly what we're expecting and the values, what they should be based on. So in a particular scenario, what does the status start date mean when a student exits special education in another state and then returns to California? What does that mean? So please download those documents. They are great resources. Your vendors also have been given copies of these documents so they can make sure that they are sending those files up appropriately. If you have any questions about those, please feel free to get in contact with us. Next slide. All right. Also, beginning October 9th, so that's next Monday through November 27th. And if we need to continue them beyond that, we absolutely will do that. Special Education Division is hosting a weekly CalPADS Special Education Data office hours. So this is in addition to the regularly scheduled CalPADS Q&A that happens on Wednesdays. But this is specific to special education. So those of you that have questions about the new file types, have any special education data related questions, please join us Mondays from 3 to 4. You do need to register in advance, but once you register for one session, it will register you for all of the sessions currently scheduled through November 27th. So please make sure you do that if you think that you might have special education related questions, or you just want to hear what other people are asking, because that's always valuable information as well. And then finally, make sure, if you have not already, my office, the Data Evaluation and Analysis Unit, sends out correspondence regularly through our CalPADS Special Education Data Support listserv link. But you actually have to sign up for that listserv. So if you want to sign up for that data support listserv, please send an email to the email address you see here. It's subscribe-calpads- and actually, I think this SPED support. So CalPADS SPED support. So subscribe-calpads-sped-support at mlist.cde.ca.gov. Okay, so with that, go ahead.
That was a mouthful, huh?
Yes, it was. And I can go ahead and answer some of these questions. Let's see. I'm sorry? Okay, let's see, 9:45. If students are returning the next year, this is a cohort question. I'll go ahead and leave that. Let's see. Okay, so answer that. So again, the new monitoring reports are going to be available very, very soon. The first ones that will be coming out are the late annual plan reviews and eligibility reevaluations. Okay. SACE users were given 2 weeks to upload 3 months of IEPs. I can't imagine that the 1612, 1613 will be 100% accurate on 10/4/2023. And folks, that's okay, right? We just opened the system. All of these new file types just went into production on September 19th. So it is not our expectation that you will have every single IEP uploaded by tomorrow. We don't, right? That's why that is just a census date. The first certification deadline, I believe, is, I can't remember. It's in December. It's in December, I believe.
December 15th.
December 15th, thank you. So that you have until December 15th, but preferably way before that, folks. We want to make sure that you get your files in so that your SELPAs have ample time to review those before the initial certification deadline. Okay. Hello, we have a lot of transactions that are coming back with errors for SACE for SWD. How do we report them if they are not allowed to upload due to errors? So Sinai, it would be important for me to understand the particular errors that you're receiving. So if you could send in a ticket if you haven't already. Now, one of the things I have been seeing, folks, is that some of you are trying to send up SWDS records. So SWDS, again, is a status. And you're trying to send up SWDS records with the status of eligible and participating. Okay. So in my roadshow presentation, one of the things I told you where we talked about the file relationships is that if for the very first time you're sending up a status of eligible and participating, think about what that means. It means the student has been determined to be eligible and that they are actively receiving services on the date of that status. Okay, so a lot of you may have had initial evaluations over the summer, and therefore SAAS is trying to send up an eligible and participating status for a student that happened during the summer. Okay, so what that means is that if you're going to have an eligible and participating status during the summer, you have to have an open enrollment, because basically you're telling us that student actively is receiving services. But for a lot of the students, they're not actually going to start services until they start school in the fall. So some of your status dates may have to be revised to the first day of school in some instances. I'm not sure, Sanai, that this is your particular problem, but I have been getting lots of questions about that. With the new redesign, we have SPED files that are being rejected, and we were unable to fix. Apparently, this is a statewide issue. So again, folks, if you're having issues with particular errors, if you could send tickets in so that we know which errors you're having the most issues with. So refer to the error number. A lot of you are getting that GER5 error, which is the ownership error. And we talked about that. Additionally, I'll be at the SAAS conference, and we can probably figure out for those of you that are SAAS users where these problems are systemically. Okay, so I need information on criteria that determines the degree of support. So Julie, we're still figuring that out. So I wouldn't even bother populating anything in those fields until we come out with some guidance for you, and that's expected in January. Okay, CDE sent out a secure email to SELPAs regarding the affected students. However, many SPED directors were CC'd, SELPA directors were CC'd on that secure email. Was it legit? Yes, it was absolutely legitimate. And that's because we did have some encrypted information in there. So it was sent through a secure file transfer protocol. Okay, why would we want the ability, why would we want SPED edit ability? So Sue Sutherland, I'm assuming you're a CalPADS administrator. So the reason that we sort of emphasized the importance of only ensuring that the appropriate people have that SPED edit role was because during my roadshows, I was told that last year, some CalPADS administrators, in order to get certified for Fall 1, actually gave themselves that role and submitted batch files for SPED just so they could get certified. And that is completely inappropriate if that CalPADS administrator does not have authority to work in the IEP system. And again, folks, because special education is very litigious, those of you that work in special education know this. And so because these are legal documents, it's really important that no users are submitting data that don't actually have the local authority to do so. Okay, student degree of support should be an SIS, not IEP system. I hear you, Benet, but we're still talking about it. Okay, some of our case managers, and you just tell me when you want me to stop, Sean, when you're ready to move on. And I can continue to answer some of these questions. I could just type some of them in if you'd like.
That would be a Paula and Marianne, because I know we need to take a break, but I don't know what time we settled on.
We still have about 10 minutes.
Okay,
I think if we paused here, though, we could probably get through the Fall 1 changes and then stop at the Fall 2, take a quick 5-minute break.
Sure, I'll go ahead and type in answers for the rest of them. So if you have SPED questions, continue typing them in the Q&A and I'll try and get to those.
So for our 23-24, our change highlights and our Fall 1. So we had SB 532, the graduation requirement exemptions that came out. And so beginning for your 23-24 school year, so again, this is brand new for this school year, the LEAs are populating a yes or no indicator for students that are graduating with state requirements. Please note that all students will need that yes or no if they are having the 200 and the 100 code being completed. And it's for students exiting after July 1st, 2023. So if you already submitted, though, your files from last year, from the 22-23 school year, no, you do not have to go back and make changes to those files. And so then for the graduation exemption indicator, we did put in these error descriptions. So SENR 630, if the invalid student completion status for the graduation exemption indicator. For SENR 631, the invalid exemption based on the enrollment exit date. So please make sure you're populating, or it's populating after the 7/1/2023. And then SENR 632, you're missing that graduation exemption indicator. If the student has that graduated 100, then, and they are after 6/30/2023, which all students are now, they must have that yes or no indicator. And then please note that all students can be exempted even if they are foster youth or EL with this indicator. However, that is a local decision on when you all graduate a student with state standards. So please make sure that you understand what that process looks like at your local level, and that you have it codified out, so that way you know which students are easily going to require that yes indicator. For students with the initial U.S. enrollment date, that U.S. enrollment date does apply for all transitional kindergarten students through 12th grade. Okay. For the U.S. Initial enrollment date, you're looking for the first day that the student attended either public or private school, including homeschooling or a school that has a private school affidavit in the United States and Puerto Rico. This does not include U.S. territories. So basically, if you have a child that is 4 years old and they attended some type of TK programming, that is that student's initial start date, and that is the date that you are looking to capture. The start date, also please be mindful if you have parents that enter that date in online through your enrollment process, that you have some type of check and balance at your local level to ensure that that date is correct. For the new language code set, please refer to Flash 256 for this information as it was entered in. Also, the file types that this applies to is again going to be that CELA file, that CRSE for your course section enrollment during your Fall 2, and then for your course section completion for your end of year. Please make sure that you are consulting with your SIS vendors to know when those codes should have been updated and what that file type of transition is going to look like for your SIS system. Also note that when to use the online maintenance versus the CELA batch file to delete TBD students. If the student only has a TBD CELA record, this can be deleted using the online maintenance. Using a CELA batch file with the D option for delete is the most recent TBD needs to be deleted, and there are older CELA records such as an EL or an RFEP. Deleting the TBD in the online for the batch file submission, you simply, if the student only has a TBD CELA record to delete, again, this can be done from your online maintenance. You first look for the student and select the CELA record with the TBD, add the correct 3-character primary language, and post. After your posting, you select the TBD you select the TBD record and then press the delete button. If the student has a recent TBD or older CELA records, a CELA batch file will need to be submitted for that TBD record. You may create the batch file using the CELA templates, or you can use the extract from your SIS system and edit that second column with the delete field. And then make sure that you're uploading that CELA record with the delete field into CalPADS production, so that way I'm waiting for it to post in order for you to get your results there to delete. Please be mindful when you are merging MIDs that you are ensuring to delete any erroneous information, whether it be CELA records or program records. Missing parent guardian names will now trigger that fatal error upon input. So LEAs, please ensure that you have a parent guardian first name and a parent guardian last name. If you have that parent guardian 2, then you must insert a parent guardian first name for 2 and a parent guardian last name for 2. Again, these fields are not required. However, in the past, we've had LEAs that submit a parent first and last name all in one field. And so it made it really difficult for us to populate for the student matching information. And so for that reasoning, these validations, they've been re-enabled and inputted so that way it will trigger. Reporting for the highest education level for each parent. I know we had a lot of questions on this one, so we're going to spend a little bit of time on this file on this slide just to make sure we cover everything. For students enrolled with primary or secondary short-term enrollments, the LEAs will need to submit that highest education level for the parent guardian field. For example, if you have that parent 1 first and last name populated, then you'll need to submit that parent education level for that parent. If parent 2 is populated, then you will need to submit a subsequent parent education level for that parent 2 as well. LEAs are not required to correct the historical data for both parents. However, if you do send up a SINth record for this year and it includes both parents, you will get that validation error, so that way you can be notified to go in and submit that second parent education level. Please note that we did change for highest education level for decline to state. We modified the definition a little bit. And so the definition now is an individual who declines to state their highest education level or for whom the information is unavailable. We distinguished it just a little bit more so you knew which code to be able to select. Also, for determining which parent or guardian to report from your SIS system. CalPADS, we only collect the parent education level for the legal parent or guardian. A legal parent or guardian definition is very encompassing of all. So please see Parent Education Code 56028 to understand the full definition of parent/guardian. If you have at the local level, it will need to be determined in your SIS system which parent or guardian is reported to CalPADS. So if you have more than one parent, or if you have more than two parents there and you need to understand which ones to report, that is going to be a process that is codified at your local level. Okay, because there are many options and we don't have that information to be able to enact that for you. Please note that when populating the parent 1, parent 2 for education levels, that this does affect your socioeconomically disadvantaged status. Okay, so if you are missing for that parent level code, again, it will trigger field 2.38 for the parent guardian highest level. Also, you can get the trigger for the SIMP 0635 for field 2.5 for the parent guardian 2, creating those data discrepancies and also creating the certification data discrepancies. So whether it's a DD or a CDD. If a parent, students with two parents or guardians will be included in the SED accountability student groups. If CalPADS only has the highest education level for one parent as not a high school graduate, the student does not qualify as SED under the condition, since both parents need to qualify as not a high school graduate. So again, if you have one parent that is not a high school graduate, but then you put the second parent in there and they are a high school graduate, then that null and voids the SED. However, if both parents are not high school graduates, then yes, that student will then be captured under the SED and reflected in the census data reports. And so then for fall 1, the change modifications for reports 1.1 and 1.17 and 1.18 for TK apportionment eligibility. So students enrolled in grade level TK, they must be 4 years old as of September 1st of this school year. Okay, if not, you will get that invalid transitional kindergarten student age trigger. We did modify this coding to ensure that as long as that student turns age 4 by September 1st, you are able to insert that information. I believe we released that update in Flash 260. It was either in Flash 260 or it was on the rollover date of September 19th. So I know some LEAs were getting a false positive trigger that has been cleared, and so your SIMP records are going in now. If you are getting a trigger now, then yes, that SCNR 0622 is valid. So please make sure that you are making those corrections. For your report 1.17, that is going to capture your LCFF unduplicated pupil count. The 1.18 will capture the LCFF unduplicated, the pupil and the student listing. So one just has the overall count. The other one has the 1.18 has the actual students, names and SSID numbers listed out, so you can ensure that yes, this is correct. For your COE LCFF, that is captured on report 1.19 for your unduplicated counts. And then for your LCFF COE, the student listing is captured on report 1.20. These reports were modified last year to be able to include this information. However, even with the new triggers of students turning 5 by April 2nd of 2024 this year, we just wanted to review these and make sure everyone knows where to be able to find the TK information. Okay, so what about single parents? If you are only submitting that one parent, then you're only submitting that one parent. So whatever their education level is, then that is what you are submitting. If that one parent falls within the SED category, then they still qualify. Thank you. So while LEAs are required to update historical data, the highest education level for both parents will now be required when LEAs update or add a SEMP record for a student. Does this mean this change only applies to new students, or do we have to go back and input the data for all of our existing students as well in your SIS? So great question. You do not have to go back and change prior year data for your students. However, if that student only had a mother being reported and you are now reporting both a mother and father for parent name and education level, then yes, you do have to populate both the mother and the father. Okay, so if you're updating basically a student record, then you must update all of it. For new students, again, it is okay to capture one parent. However, if you are sending up 2 parent names, then yes, you must send up 2 parent education levels. Questions? For FRPM reduced meal pricing, we didn't go over that one just yet. I believe, Angela, do you recall if those are in some later slides?
They are not.
Okay.
Is that Felipe you're addressing?
Yes.
I don't see a question in there, so
yeah.
Maybe Felipe type in a question for here for later. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the session as well. So I'm going to mark you as answered live for now.
And then the other questions that are coming in, I
Sherry
only see like parts of questions.
Yeah, Sherry at 10:39.
Yeah, I'm not sure what question every
I think
year.
Parent ed level, I'm guessing.
So Sherry, yes, if you're speaking of parent ed level, are we required to ask this question every year? If you're talking about newly enrolled students, yes, you are required on that enrollment form to ask the question you're required to ask the question during the time of enrollment. If you're asking about updating your local system, that is not a requirement from CDE. However, I know that some of your SIS systems have a process for parents to ensure that the information is correct each year. And so that would be a local decision that you all choose if that's a field that you want them to be able to update. Christopher, if one parent guardian is a high school graduate and the other is declined to state, that would not qualify that student as SED, correct? Yes, that is correct. Students are only qualified as SED from the parent guardian highest education level if all parents are not a high school graduate, right? Yes. And Kyron's typing an answer in. I think he's going to give you a little bit more information. Students can fall in the SED category for other reasons. However, just based upon that example, yes, if one parent is not a high school graduate and the other parent declines to state, then yes, that would invalidate the SED for that category. Okay, so for our Fall 2 course codes updates and assignment monitoring. Our new advanced placement course codes, we added 2 of the new course codes, 9361 for AP African American Studies and 9362 for AP Pre-Calculus. For our CTE pathway codes, please see Flash 260. It was a really lengthy flash that had a lot of useful information on it though. For the new code for pathway 7263, introduction to performance, music, and live events, the pathway being 999, and then retired codes. We retired quite a few coming from the different animation, visual, dance, choreography, professional theater and music, and then also some of the film and production. So a lot of the arts got collaborated into the new pathway name of Introduction to Performance, Music, and Live Events, and the retired sub-pathways are listed there as well too. You can also find these in the code set for the new updated version of 15.1. Oh, our wonderful CalSAAS monitoring. So our CalSAAS assignment monitoring, it ends on October 30th, 2023. So please be mindful to connect with your local HR and or your local HR/talent teams so they have all of the best and correct information. LEAs, you should be checking with your CalSAAS determinations for any CalPADS errors. Please make sure that the data error in CalPADS has been corrected, so you're not repeating that same issue for the 23-24 school year for your Fall 2 data. Okay, so 2 ways to get an earlier start on your assignment monitoring. First, make sure that you are pulling a report of your course assignments in your local SIS system. The other is to work with your CalPADS administrator and or your curriculum specialist to review report 4.3 of your staff teaching assignment details. You're looking to ensure that the correct state course code is listed, and then also any CalPADS, any ones that resulted in the CalPADS errors for the previous school year, that those have been remedied. Ensure that any local assignment options are being listed and are in place by Census Day. And then correct any misassignments for the prior school year. And so some of our common CalSAAS data quality issues that we've received comments on from our CTC folks. It's the importance of closing out the educator records. Oftentimes we have educators that move on at the end of the school year, and we have not closed that record out. We just simply rolled it forward into that SIS, within your SIS system. Please ensure that you are connecting with your HR and talent staff to know which certificated staff members are appropriate leaving you, and also classified if they're going into your SIS. So that way those educators aren't being able to be selected within that drop down of attaching the teacher to the course and creating that section. This allows for other LEAs to be able to pick up that educator within CalPADS and all of the reporting to go through smoothly. Another common one for data quality is the instructional strategy of 700 for special education. Only course sections where the curriculum is specifically designed for students with disabilities or special day classes should be marked with that 700 course, that 700 instructional strategy tag. Also, all students within that section must be identified in CalPADS with a SPED record in order to be in that class. Okay, those are two of the most tricky items there. We still see that 700 being mismarked. And so again, just make sure you're looking at those back-end rules, please. For CTE courses, ensure that the course was developed using more than 50% of the CTE standards. Things are not for CTE, things that are not factors in determining whether a course is CTE is if a course is part of a formal CTE program, also if the course is part of a CTE pathway, or if the course is taught by a CTE credentialed teacher. Please note, any courses not taught by a CTE credentialed teacher will result as a valid misassignment though. Middle school core settings, okay? A core setting is when core setting is one in which a teacher is assigned to the class on the basis of their credential and authorizes services in a self-contained classroom, okay? This teacher must also teach 2 or more subjects to the same group of students in the same day, and the student population for the class remains substantially the same. So these students are literally going from math to science with the same teacher. However, the students themselves, again, the subject is changing, but not the actual students. This one is a little tricky. So again, make sure that you are understanding and reading that the modifications and for the core classroom. Also, this is for grades 5 through 8. Okay, so if it is not a grade 5 through 8, shouldn't be using this one. This one should not be used for departmentalized ELD or CTE courses. And so reviewing your ODS reviewing your ODS report for 4.3 early. So this is that report that you sit down with your curriculum specialist, also with your credential analyst, and go through and let's make sure that all of your courses and sections are listed correctly, and seeing whether or not those section IDs should be different, and then the content, the sub-content areas, along with your educational services. So verifying all of the information is correct. So your state course code and that sub-content, that subcategory, ensuring that the student grade level range is correct. If you have any special course characteristics, whether it be a college course, an English language services course, instructional language, instructional strategy, your independent study, or even your online instruction type, ensuring that those indicators are populated for those sections. And then most importantly, making sure that those are populated as of 10/4, because that is Census Day this year. So all of these changes need to be reflected within that population now. A lot of SISs don't allow you to necessarily go back and change this if you are already out of the fall 1 semester or the first trimester. So ensuring to make these updates now is crucial. And so just highlighting some of those areas in which you're going to see the reports where you're looking for in your report for 4.3. And so then for your Fall 2 assignment monitoring resources, these resources are still here and they haven't changed, which is actually a little wonderful because we've got enough changes going on. So for your code set, that one actually did update the CalPADS code set for 15.1. It is posted. If you are not a part of the CalPADS listserv, ensuring that that information is there along with your CalPADS FAQs. That's the most readily available information for your question and answers. You can find a lot of information there, and it is delineated by end of year, Fall 1 and Fall 2. Your TAMO reporting along with your PETS reporting, ensuring that if your credential analyst needs this information or your HR director or specialist needs it, that they know where to be able to go and share. Your CTC appropriate credentials, it's a handy tool, so please make sure you're using that one along with the admin assignment manual. You also have your CTC listserv that you can join and your credentials FAQ. Any questions before I move on to looking ahead for 2024?
I think Brandy's answering them.
I am there. I mean, there's a lot of questions that pertain to special education assignments as well as questions about middle school core. And so really, really quickly, a lot of you are getting CalPADS determinations from your monitoring authorities saying that some special education assignments are being made. Your MAs are making determinations of what they call a CalPADS error. And essentially that CalPADS error determination says that there's something wrong with the data, the way the data were reported. And that's true in some cases. But here's what I'll tell you. For special education assignments, this is really important. If you've got a SPED teacher that is pushing in to a gen ed classroom, please make sure that you do not report that SPED teacher as a co-teacher or a team teaching in a team teaching situation in the records, because if you do that, it will result in a misassignment or an exception and potentially a CalPADS error. Okay, you need to report those teachers' assignments separately using code 9231, which is for resource specialists. All of the special education assignments are being evaluated separate if they are part of a gen ed, they're pushing into a gen ed section. Now, in the case where you have a special education teacher assigned to a course that has both gen ed and students with disabilities, that is going to potentially be an exception and a misassignment. Okay, so if it's a general education setting, the teacher has to have the appropriate authorizations to teach in a gen ed setting. If that teacher only has a special education credential, then that is potentially a misassignment. And it may not be a CalPADS error, right? It may just be an actual misassignment. With respect to middle school core, one of the common misconceptions is that if you guys are on a block schedule, right, you have a teacher that's teaching math on Mondays and Wednesdays to a group of kids, and then she teaches science to those kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You think that's middle school core because the teacher's teaching math and science, but the definition of middle school core requires that those courses occur on the same day. Okay, so those of you that have block schedules, they have to occur on the same day. So it's same kids, same day. And those courses, we're not talking about self-contained courses. Self-contained courses by definition are not middle school core. Only departmentalized courses can be flagged as middle school core. And if you're reporting a course as middle school core, we really expect to see more than one departmentalized course tagged as middle school core, because the teacher has to core at least 2 or more subjects. Okay, I'm done.
And so for our looking ahead for 2024, for our student offenses, so beginning July 1st, 2024, disruption and defiance for Education Code 48900K will no longer solely suspend students completely through grades TK through 12 for committing defiance. There is an exception, and it is provided with the authority for teachers in Ed Code section 48910. So this offense code actually hasn't changed much. The biggest change is that it is going to now include grades 9 through 12. So before it just went through grades TK through 8, now it is going from TK through 12. So high school districts, please ensure that this code is no longer being used solely by itself. Okay, so teachers would retain an existing authorization to suspend any pupil in grades from classes for students that commit willful defiance. However, that is a single class suspension, and it could continue until the following day, but the child would not be prohibited from attending school entirely. Okay, it is stated in the bill, and again, this goes in effect July 1st, 2024. And then next we have our summer EBT program benefits. So there will continue for summer EBT program for 2024. The existing free and reduced eligibility data in CalPADS will be used to determine that student's eligibility status. No additional information or data is needed currently, and further guidance for the summer EBT program we will be provided to you in that flash. Note that they removed the pandemic EBT and then just went back to the standard of EBT. And then for our CalPADS support updates. And I will kindly toss it over to Angela at this time.
Okay, next slide, please. Thank you, Sean. Just happy Info Day Eve to everybody. Tomorrow would be a great day to bring donuts or bagels to your data team, or maybe even better, have your boss do that. Before I get started, can you hear me okay? My headset snapped a second ago.
Yes,
Sean, you can hear me. Great. Okay. Since we last met with you, we have had 2 rounds of user acceptance testing where we invited select LEAs to access new features in a testing environment, and they were invited to report any defects they found or enhancements that would improve usability. The first was SPED Redesign, when that was from April to July. The testing was done on fall 1, 22-23 because we didn't have 23-24 running just yet. So we kind of had to go backwards in time to do the testing on that. And as you all are aware, that is now in production as of September 19th. The second UAT was a combination of 2 discrete new features, Elasticsearch and Data Discrepancy user interface. And that happened August through September. Elasticsearch is an upgrade to our existing SSID match tool. It's just same workflow, but potentially have better matches as a result. It's not in production yet, and we don't have an ETA. There's a couple more enhancements that we'd like to make sure that you're getting the best match results as possible. So coming soon. And the Data Discrepancy UI is a new screen that's going to allow you to resolve submission-specific certification errors throughout the school year. So you don't have to wait for a submission to open up. That one also is not in production yet. I don't have an ETA, but I'm going to demo that shortly. And so I'll talk more about that there. Both rounds of user acceptance testing found defects and enhancement requests. So those changes are currently being implemented right now. And just a big round of applause to our volunteer LEA testers. We recognize that everybody is very busy and extremely swamped. So it's a sacrifice to make that time, carve out that time to help help CALSAAS and CalPADS and CDE, as well as all the other your counterparts out in the field. That work you did will make their lives easier. So thank you very much. Yay! I see clapping. So
I see the applause.
yeah, yay! Thank you, everybody. That was a tremendous effort on your part, and we really appreciate that. So Sean, I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
So I'm on the home screen. This is a test environment, and you'll note that it says non-production at the top there. And draw your attention to the left-hand navigation. There's a new link called Data Discrepancies. Okay, so I'm using a test LEA. There is no PII in this. It's all fake data. I think Nate set this up. I saw Harry Truman and a couple other funny names. So it's kind of similar to the certification error screen, the summary screen. Difference is you have some more discrete filters that you can apply. Right now it's defaulting to fall 1, and probably as we advance through the year, I'm guessing it'll jump over to these end of year, or maybe not, maybe you have to come in and select them, I'm not sure. But it definitely defaults to fatal. A data discrepancy, for those of you who don't know, is a flavor of the certification data discrepancies, which were an evolution of the certification errors, certification validations. Basically, if it's fatal, that prevents you from certifying. And the hope with the screen is as it's going to be running throughout the year, you won't have to wait until a submission kicks off to start seeing your potential certification errors or CDDs. That these DDs are going to be a reflection of what's going to happen once, end of year 4 kicks off, first, let's say, so that you can get a jump on making these corrections before then. And one of the reasons that's important, and I'm excited that it's close to getting launched, is the timing is good with this EOI certification deadlines getting condensed, that if you are able to spend time ahead of end of year resolving your errors, that will definitely give you a jump on making sure you meet those new end of year deadlines. So right now I only have 9, and there are more enhancements coming to this screen right now. It's a little bit limited. One of the enhancements we requested, I think this was feedback from our user acceptance testers, is this 8. You should be able to click on that 8, and that would filter on this display grid to only show those 8. Right now it shows all. And so if I wanted to just see my serve 440 F1 errors, I'd have to come in here and type that. So hopefully before that goes live, that will be fixed. The other request that we asked for was the SSID should have a hyperlink similar to the certification screen, where you can kind of right click and open up in a new window, so that you don't have to open a new window and then go search for the student. Similar to existing CDDs in the submission window, you can open up the record that is causing the error. And for example, this one is saying I have a plan record for a student, but I don't have the services that are tied to it. And if I wanted to, I could go look the student up. Okay, so that error message told me, hey, you submitted a plan. So I'm verifying that. Still opening. It was there when I checked yesterday. oh, missing plan. Sorry, I read it backwards. Missing plan for a student with a CERB. So the opposite of what I said. So I have a services record, but I don't have the associated plan that goes with it. And so I could add it here, but like Brandy said, we don't recommend that. It's better to make sure it's populated correctly in your SPED system and then send it up as a batch file. And that would basically resolve that error. And then come the submission window, I'd be down, that's fixed now. The other feature that's included in here is a download if you wanted to rather not work on the screen itself, but you'd rather work from a file, and it's helpful for the larger LEAs. One of the other requests we got from our testers is that the filters that I have on the screen didn't carry through. So if you noticed when I first logged in, the very first thing I did was change my academic year. So rather than pull that in, now it's just defaulting. So we'd like to make it a little bit smarter so that this modal carries in my filters that I had previously selected. So one thing to keep in mind here is that this discrepancy error report extract is by record type, and it's in the same file format as the record type. It defaults to SCNR. So a gotcha here is all of us, including some of the testers, have requested it and forgetting to make that change. So I was working on serve errors. So if I wanted to go see those, I have to first select that record type. Again, we're hoping to get, before that launches, that those types of filters will be included. The other piece that we'd like to see is some kind of link. Right now, once I requested that file, I would have to open a new window and navigate to the extract screen to download it there, whereas it'd be nice to have it all kind of incorporated, or at least a hyperlink that I could jump over that way. Going forward, almost all, not all, but almost all of the legacy CERT errors are going to be converted to CDDs and DDs. The exception is aggregate level. CERT errors are going to remain. And when I say aggregate, I mean it's not a student level or a staff level type error. A real common one would be CERT 1, which means you have an open school and you didn't submit any enrollment at all for that school. That's going to stay as CERT 1, but all the other record level errors are going to be converted to CDDs, so that throughout the year they'll be running on this screen and as well as on your submission during your submission window. Are there any questions on this before I stop sharing that?
There was just one, Angela. Just confirming that the data discrepancies page is not available just yet, right?
Right, it is not available. We had hoped to get it ready for fall, before fall 1. It's kind of moot now, right? Because as of tomorrow, you'll all have these errors on your certification screens. So ideally before fall 2, but like I said, I think it'll be most impactful for EOY so that you can start working on those ahead of the end of your submission window opening.
Will they need a new role to access this functionality?
Don't know off the top of my head.
I think it aligns with like the SCNR edit, perhaps. I don't think we added a brand new role. It takes.
I don't think so either.
One. Yeah.
I don't know, Kyron, maybe you could type that and answer. You know.
And then another question is, how often do the discrepancy errors update or refresh?
Frequently throughout the whole day. And you'll see, at least in the test environment, that time, the start time and the end time didn't take very long. So as records are getting updated throughout the day, these DDs will also get refreshed. Great question, though.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, so for the importance of SSID matching tool and best practices, please ensure that you are utilizing the SSID matching tool and you know how that is going to correspond with your local SIS. When the SCNR is sent up blank, the SSID, and I'm sorry, for an SCNR file, if it is sent up blank with a blank SSID and local ID for a new student, then it is going to automatically create if it'll already create a new SSID. If that student already has an SSID, then you are creating that mid. Okay, and so that mid, it then affects their testing to keep the SSID separate, but also then we are affecting either the CELA record and or the program's record. So just ensuring that you are doing your due diligence to double check your SIS system. Most SIS systems have built in a component to be able to take that matching file and give you even more results back than CalPADS ever did before. So I know it's an extra step that we're not used to, but if we can please become familiar with it, it would save you a lot of time in merging those MIDs. Okay. Some of the best practices, again, are to go ahead and use that SSID matching tool. After the SSIDs are assigned, ensure that you are resolving any outstanding MIDs the same day if possible. And then also have a local process for reviewing students stating that they have a prior California school enrollment. Okay, so that way you already know that yes, the student should have an SSID out there somewhere. Okay, and so you don't want to be able to pick up those students. And then from one of our other units within our educational data management, we've been asked to share the school directory for you. Most of the time it is called just the directory, but it is the California School Directory, and it requires your updating. So if you click on the directory link, it'll take you to the directory where you can type in any school name and it'll populate back with that CDS code and all the information for that school. Okay, your OPUS monitor is the one who can update this information. So if you click on there, you type in your school's name and you look at that information and you see that any of it is incorrect, please coordinate with your OPUS coordinator to correct this information. They can simply go in to their OPUS account and be able to update this information. It's not a ticket or anything that you have to put in. It is something that you're able to do right there at the local level. Okay, and so there's a disclaimer on that page that states that we actually rely on you all to be able to update this information. And if other schools are looking at it and it's not correct, it's through no fault of CDEs, but we'd like to, sharing is caring in this opportunity. And so please go ahead and review it. If you have multiple schools, please ensure that you're reviewing all of them. And on that note, I will bounce it right back to Angela for some support tips and resources.
Thanks, Sean. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to back to my live demo to show you the Fall 1 roadmap and the checklist. I had planned to pull up the Flash 260, which went out a week or so ago, but it's actually been incorporated into the roadmap. So we'll just be looking at that. And then we'll be looking at some report mapping guides. Okay, so back to CalPADS, hopefully. Where I wanted to show you was how to get to the Fall 1 roadmap and the checklist. So if you're in the left-hand navigation under Help User Manual, this document is exceedingly helpful in all kinds of ways, but I'm just going to focus on, if you just come to the main landing page, we have the Fall 1 roadmap. We do this for every submission. I don't believe Fall 2 has been updated yet, but Fall 1 certainly has. And it's a nice place to just get grounded, even if you've been doing this a while. I think you might find this helpful of just, putting your head around, okay, what are all the things for fall one? Because I know a lot of you are doing all kinds of different jobs. And so sometimes you can get lost in all the chaos of your daily work. So this page has just, the timelines, the deadlines that you have for each mission. It's got the milestones, the checklist. I'm going to come back to that momentarily. Recent communications. So here's Flash 260, but it's also incorporated down below here in what's new for fall one. The source was CalPADS Flash 260. And we covered a lot of this content here today as well. So we don't expect you to remember everything we talked about today. And so it's nice to have this kind of resource of like, oh yeah, that's what they said. It's right here. I don't have to go pull up that PowerPoint. And if you're new, what do I even need to submit? These are the files for fall one. Got the SSID overview. I'm going to skip that. Some information on LCFF. That's probably one of our #1 hot topics that we get on the service desk. I'll talk more about that later. And I like this section because it has a lot of links to the resources that are really helpful to making your CalPADS fall one submission successful. And then we also have some training resources available here as well. And then support, but I think all of you know how to get a hold of us. So I'm going to jump back up to the checklist, and I've already downloaded it, but here's where you would go get that. And it's got 3 tabs. The first tab is just an overview of the timeline, and we have put together some suggested milestones for you. These aren't deadlines, but in order for you to be successful to meet the December 15th deadline, this is a great launching spot. But what I wanted to point out to you is that we have this November through December 2nd recommended date to resolve your certification data discrepancies and your certification errors, specifically the fatal ones, the ones that prevent you from certifying. Just a heads up, don't be surprised if when you're talking to one of us here at CALSAAS, we encourage you to shoot a little higher than that, because looking at the calendar, if you were to finish by November 17th, you could kind of have a nice little Thanksgiving break, not having that looming over your head. So that's Friday before the Thanksgiving week. So that's a good aspirational date to have all your fatals fixed, because then at least you could meet that December 15th deadline. And even if your reports aren't perfect, you can kind of use that amendment window to come back and do any remaining cleanup, but still meet your obligations for that deadline. The second tab we wanted to talk about is the checklist. And it basically has the scope of all the fall one tasks that have to do with fall one, and as well as a column for who is responsible for that task. So it's a good idea to fill this out, and then the date it was completed, and come back and review that periodically. Probably a good place would be if you have weekly staff meetings to come back and make sure you're on target, that you're covering all these bases. And then the last tab is the CERT report quality check, and it lists every single certification report that is included for fall one, and it has some tips on what to look for and to make sure that you're not missing anything, to make sure that you have reviewed the key pieces of information to ensure that you have quality data that you're certifying. And then back to our fall one roadmap. I want to jump to one of my favorite resources, and I feel like they're kind of underutilized, these fall one report mapping guides. We clicked on that and go to fall one. Have a list of all the fall one reports. The aggregate reports are the ones that you're actually certifying here. So I'm going to focus on 1.17. Like I said, that is our probably #1 report that we get questioned about. And so this mapping guide, if nothing else, you walk away today, make sure you know how to find this, because it gives you the basic selection criteria really common question we get about 1.17 is, hey, not all of my kindergartners were included. Well, it's because they have to be a certain age to be eligible for LCFF. And so here now this year we've added TK, but they still have to be 5 before April 2nd. So key piece of information. The other thing about this report is that this total enrollment column includes all of the students in your LEA, but when you drill down to the detailed version, which is 1.18, and it's the student list, it's only going to include this final column. So this column here is adding up all these other columns and making it a distinct count. So when you download 1.18, it's going to be these 4 students versus these 18 students. Not all of our mapping guides have been updated for fall 1 yet. 1.17 definitely has, 1.18, 1.1. So we are still in the process of the new SPED reports, hoping to get those out this week. But usually what we recommend is when you're starting on your fall submission that you just focus on your fatal certification errors first, because those can impact your reports. So don't jump immediately tomorrow, go run your 1.17, because I can almost guarantee you that it's going to be missing some students, and they're probably the students that have certification errors. So start with your certification errors first. Once those are cleared up, then move on to the report step. And that was covered here in the checklist here. It's kind of the sequencing of things. Okay, back to PowerPoint. Sean. Okay, just some general support tips. If you've been around a while, you've heard me. I'm a broken record, but we have had a lot of turnover in CalPADS administrators, a lot of retirements, a lot of people shuffling around. And so, and even though there's some of you that have been around for a while, just a good reminder that to help us engage with you and provide good quality support, some of that is on you. So we do have the active and known issues in the footer of CalPADS. When you encounter something that doesn't appear right, it doesn't make sense to you, it seems like that probably is a bug, go down to that footer and click on the active and known issues. It's updated multiple times a day with any defects that we have uncovered. And so we do ask that you check that first before you put in a ticket. That way, you know, we already know about it. You don't need to tell us again. So we're already getting 400 tickets a day. We don't need 600, right? And then just a reminder to our CalPADS administrator, your site level users should not be putting in tickets. They should be going to you first, and you put in a ticket on their behalf. We are a small team, and we just do not have the capacity to support statewide CalPADS users. So try to limit it to the CalPADS LEA administrator, the SPED coordinator, and the SELPA administrator. And those 3 typically are who we try to engage with. And so if somebody can't log in and they're at a school site, they should know to contact you. So that's a good reminder when you're doing your training, so let them know that you are their primary contact. Our preferred method for you to contact us is to use the web form. So if you're inside of CalPADS, under click on help and service request. It's good for you too, because if you are logged in, it pre-populates a lot of your contact information, so you don't need to retype all of that stuff. When you do fill out that form or you do send an email, it's really critical that you give us enough information to act on your ticket without having to write back to you and ask a bunch of questions. So for instance, input validation error. If it's an IVR, you've uploaded a file and you've got an error and you need help troubleshooting that, make sure you include the job ID. Otherwise, we don't know which records you're looking at. So really critical that you include the job ID. SPED folk, though you guys seem to be the ones that are skipping that step. So I know because you're working in your SED system, and I believe most of them are starting to show that to you in the screen inside your SED system. But if not, you can find that job ID if you log into CalPADS and go to the View Submission Status screen. It's the column on the far left. And that's a key piece of information that we need from you. also include the error number itself that you're questioning, and any other kind of pertinent information that might be helpful to us, like SSID, the seed, if you're working on certification errors, the cert error number, anything that you think would be beneficial so that we don't have to go back and forth with you to get more information before we can actually help you resolve that ticket. We do ask that you exclude personally identifiable information, PII, in the ticket itself. We don't need that. The seed or the SSID is sufficient for us on 99% of the time. The rare occasion that we need that PII, we have a CALSAAS secure upload. And so we will work with you to securely put that information on that server. But that is not very common. Okay, next slide now. Okay, researches and training. You guys have seen this slide before, but just in case the new folks here, that first link is Bridge. That is our learning management system for our users to attend live CalPADS trainings and also access recorded trainings. It is limited to, I believe, 2 or 3 per LEA. We're limited on our licensing for that. So for that reason, we have our second link, which is the CALSAAS training YouTube channel. And we do put all of our recorded training sessions on that page, so anybody can access that. You don't have to have a Bridge account to get to there. We also, on that training channel, which I really appreciate, is trainers have developed these short videos on error resolution. So a lot of times you can go to that YouTube page and type in the error number, and a video will pop up, and it'll like 4-minute walkthrough, like how do I fix this error? So that's a really nice feature. Third link is the CalPADS documentation. I believe Sean had that on her slides as well. It's a really good page to bookmark because it has documents on it that basically all of us on the service desk have open all the time, like the data guide and the CFS and valid code combinations. Those are documents that we just keep open every day. And so that's where you find them. And then the final link is for CALSAAS resources. This is our CALSAAS FICMAT website. And if on the resources button, it will give you a long list of all the PowerPoint presentations we've ever, at least in the recent past, have presented. It also has some data management tools that can help your data team. And so it's a nice place to just go peruse around and see if there's anything in there that might bolster the data team that you have built, and if there's ways to make that team a little bit stronger. Okay, next slide. Okay, the web form, like I said, is preferable, but if for whatever reason you're not able to use it, use email instead. Paula did ask me to point out that this email here, the CalPADS-support, is where you go to get support, get help with CalPADS. There is another CalPADS email address that's floating around out there that goes directly to the CalPADS operations office, but they're not the help desk. They, for example, I believe it's just calpads@cde.ca.gov. That one they were using to collect your feedback on the proposed deadlines and changing of the grad date. So just be mindful if you're needing help with using CalPADS, make sure you're using that CalPADS-support.
Yeah, and Angela, if I can just add, this is Paula. It's
Sure.
It's calpads@cde.ca.gov, so we know how that must be confusing. So I think we're going to talk about maybe changing that name so it doesn't get confused. But it just seems like recently, I don't know if it's because there's a lot of new folks, that we're getting a lot of questions that should go to the CalPADS support email or through the web form. And what happens is it just delays a response because we then forward it to the other email, then it has to go through, that process. So just send all the CalPADS questions to this email or through the web form. And if it's, something not so CalPADS related, more of a policy question or something like that, that's what the other email is for. So thanks. If you could try to do that, it'd be great.
Thanks, Paula. And then the last thing I wanted to point out on this slide is for those of you who are new, those 2 links to the listservs are a gold mine for you. So the first one is the CALSAAS 2A listserv, and it's an opportunity for you to go back and forth and talk to your counterparts out in the field. And so it's nice if you can just type in a question out there. Hey, how did you handle this situation? And you'll get several very thoughtful, great responses. So good place to go. The CalPADS listserv is one way, the second link there, and definitely sign up for that because we do send out flash communications periodically, as well as just other kind of updates. So just if you want to stay informed, that is the place to go. And I think I'm done with my presentation. There's another slide. I think it's the next meetings. Be zooming from lovely downtown Sacramento. And if you downloaded this presentation, the links are in the notes. I did want to make a comment on that. There were so many questions about parent ed level. If you download this presentation, Sean did a great job of writing the notes on that file or on that slide. So do go back and read her notes on that if you can. And I think, were there any questions on my section?
I don't believe so. I've been trying to answer.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any.
We are a little bit over time, but I think most of us can stay if folks would like to, if you had any questions that didn't get addressed that related to this presentation. The other link they were asking for, Sean, was that CalSAAS presentation that you pulled up. Is there a link to that somewhere?
That one isn't. I tried looking on LACO's website. They were the ones where I went to and actually saw the presentation.
On our YouTube channel, Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we publish a CalSAAS recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did. Let me see.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Marshall.
Marshall.
I've got like 8 tabs open trying to find this thing. I was like, oh.
So if you go to the CSIS YouTube channel and then do a search on CalSAAS, you'll see some recordings.
Deadline for the lunch forms.
NSLP.
Yeah.
You have to have them signed by the parent by October 31st or they won't be included.
They have to be received, not signed by the parent.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, when you receive it, isn't the parent signing it? No.
Right. So basically it needs to get turned in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How will the new deadline changes affect year-round schools? Anybody know?
The impact for, and when you say the new deadline changes, I believe you're speaking about graduation cohort. And
Yeah,
so,
EOI, yeah.
Oh, EOI or?
Well, I think all of them, right? EOI is causing the grad date to change.
Gosh. Okay. Understood. Thank you, Martha. So when we reviewed the data, it was very minimal. And so that's why we were able to feel confident in pushing up the deadlines. Please know that the deadlines were at the request of the LEAs to be able to push that information up because your superintendents want to be able to see that information a lot sooner on the dashboard. So I understand that for CalPADS admins that yes, this does shorten your time span. However, we are just meeting or just trying to meet the needs of all bodies and all roles. So your overall question though is that it's minimal. That grad cohort will still be captured. It will just be captured in a different bucket. And so where you're used to seeing it in the reporting, there'll be like an additional column there that will have that information. So is it still captured? Yes, it is. And is it still reported out? Yes, it is.
So also, Sean, I would say for year-round schools like the elementaries, we've had year-round even with the current deadlines, right? And EOI is specific. It looks at data from July 1 through June 30th. That's always been the case. So even though you're year-round, we still look at July 1 through June 30th. So I don't know if that's where you were going, Karina, with your question in regards to year-round schools.
And just, we will be providing more specific guidance. There were a lot of questions regarding what do they do with the summer grads in terms of, do you enroll them in summers, in the summer or whatever. So we know there's some outstanding issues and questions out there that we will be providing further guidance once we do finalize the end of year deadlines. So they haven't been finalized yet, but the statute is what it is. So we're trying to address all these concerns.
So if they turn in the NSLP form by October 31st, can they use the start date as the school start date as the effective start date of that program record?
Well, Rima can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we will pull that record in even with a start date of October 31st. That's the way the report is designed.
You are correct. So we would prefer what
you don't have to manipulate the data, basically.
So when you receive the form should be your effective start date. Is that what you're saying,
program
Paula?
start date, correct.
Can we use June 30th, 2024 grad date for seniors that make up missing credits during the summer? Isn't that a local decision? So let's say they use the summer to make up credits. Can they backdate it to say that they graduated on June 30th?
We will discuss that with our accountability folks, but that will be part of any guidance that we come out with regards to how to deal with the summer grads in terms of how you report them.
So one more question. I recently noticed that Aries has closed out all free and reduced records established by the parent confirmation prior to the first day of school. If a record is closed out, will it be on the unduplicated report? No, it has to.
It has to, right.
So if the record is closed out before Census Day and it is, then no, you wouldn't see that, you wouldn't see that record at all.
Being counted.
Whether being counted on a report or within the student. You'd see the end date within that student category and file for that program. And so if that's something that needs to be discussed with your SIS system, please put in a ticket with them to understand what's the logic going on there.
But otherwise, basically, if they're closing out the year before, that's fine. They just need to submit a new one for the next school year, basically, right?
Yes. Some SISs already populate that, though. That's what I was saying. They may want to put in a ticket so they're not reduplicating work.
What if parent ed levels are not in by Census Day? CalPADS will use the SIMP record that's effective on or before Census Day. So if you don't collect it, let's say you collect it, I don't know, on October 20th, if that information is on a SIMP record that's effective prior to Census Day, then that data would be included. But if you created a SIMP record that had an effective date after Census Day, that record would not be included. So it doesn't matter when you post it, it's the effective date of that SIMP record that determines whether or not that record's included. And that may be a SIS question of what effective date do they use. And Wendy, does SPED data from our SPED SIS need to be uploaded by Census Day or by the fall certification deadline? Well, certainly not by this deadline. You got to get that data in way before because it's likely to have errors and people then also need to see that data on reports. And so people are looking at reports like several weeks before the deadline. So again, it doesn't have to be in by Census Day. It's great if it can, because then you can rely on those reports right away. If it takes you 2 months to get data in, then the reports are not helpful, right? Nobody can look at the data because you don't have it in the system yet. So the sooner you can get it into CalPADS and see that reflected on reports, the earlier people can be looking at it and know if it's accurate data. Should I not have an end date of 6/6/24 for FRPM? So that's a future end date, right? What would you recommend, Sean?
I recommend consult with your SIS system. Some SIS systems automatically populate that end date. However, you also have the option to match that end date with the student enrollment. So say the student were to leave tomorrow 10-4 or today 10-3, then it would auto-populate then to close out that record to match that date. So because if you have to send it, if you've already submitted a 6/6 2024 date, then you'd have to go back and correct that because you would get an error because the student isn't enrolled with you.
And Barreto, can we have parents fill out the alternative income survey each year during parent data confirmation, since the information they filled out the year before would not be included?
So I think you're talking about FRPM, and there are specific dates and when you can collect that information for free and reduced. So ensure that your data confirmation is including those dates. If not, then you might need to recapture that information.
To reach out, it'd be helpful to have their contact info listed instead. To reach out to who? For what? Sorry, anonymous.
Yeah, I don't know.
Will we need to update current students with the new language codes?
So Flash 260 gives really detailed guidance on this one because the answer can change. If the student already, the easiest way I can rephrase this is if the student already has that CELA record in place and it's an existing student and it was completed before the rollover date, no. If it is a new student or modifications need to be made to an older CELA record, then yes.
Yeah, I guess I'd also frame it in the terms of it's kind of a local policy decision as to whether or not you want to update existing students. However, you may or may not actually be able to because of how the CalPADS rules work. So try to read that flash really closely. It tries to, articulate all of that.
To add to Paula's, just to talk to your SIS vendors to understand their mapping back of it, because our ODS extract mapping isn't changing. It still includes the old codes plus the new codes, depending again when that student had that CELA record. And then also knowing that the language codes apply to your course section enrollment and your course section completion files, so knowing how it maps to those as well too. If you fix something in the morning, will you see an update later?
ODS still is an overnight process, except for the SPED files. They don't have to wait for overnight. In prior years, you updated more than once a day. Are you sure you're talking about ODS? ODS was always a nightly process.
Yeah, they might be talking about the revision.
Snapshot revisions.
Yeah.
Revisions happen more frequently, but when the system's running slow, sometimes people only get them once a day. And so, Christy, we are trying to improve that so that revisions can happen more frequently throughout the day.
That is definitely a known issue that we're trying to improve upon.
Can someone provide the link that refers to dates that we need to include for the alternative income summary for FRPM, please? Wasn't that in a flash?
Yeah, it's in a flash. The difference between the alt income form and the NSLP application is that you can actually get the alt income form earlier, because we understand some LEAs like to hand that out basically during registration, which might be in the spring. And so we have one of the flashes kind of detail all that and basically say you can get that information for the upcoming school year in the spring of the prior school year. But then when you submit that record to CalPADS, it needs to have a start date that's in the, in the subsequent school year. So there's more flexibility around when you can collect that alt income form. The NSLP application is different. It needs to be in the next school year that you can start collecting it. But I believe that flash tries to articulate that.
Right.
So yes, we are going to conclude this one. If you have any lingering questions, please feel free to put in that CalPADS ticket. If not, if it's a fairly lower level question and you want to wait until Wednesday, we can always welcome you to the Q&A. And we get those 1 questions down the list. And if we make it back around the 2nd and 3rd questions, we gladly answer.
Bye, everybody.
All right, thanks everyone.
Bye.